Krystal, what are you taking a look at?
Well, guys, perhaps no effort is more personal to President Joe Biden or more consistently touted by the president himself than his efforts to cure cancer. Inspired by the untimely death of his son, Beau, Biden initially launched the so-called cancer moonshot in 2016 when he was vice president. Now, in the White House, they have established another admirable set of goals, quote, to reduce the death rate from cancer by at least 50% over the next 25 years and improve the experience of people and their families living with and surviving cancer, and by doing this and more, end cancer as we know it today. But as Professor Anthony Zinkis has been pointing out, right now as we speak, our for-profit healthcare and pharmaceutical industries, they are not even capable of supplying existing cancer drugs for patients who are suffering with that disease right now today. NBC News has some of the details. They say cancer drug shortages are creating dire circumstances for some patients. In some cases, other drugs are available, but they may not work as well. In other cases, patients may die waiting for the medications that they need. According to that report, 4 different cancer drugs are in shortage right now, causing rationing, the use of inferior treatments, and leading, as they say there, in some instances, to avoidable death. NBC interviewed a man named Roger, who is suffering with an aggressive form of prostate cancer, stage 4. After chemotherapy was unsuccessful, his doctor recommended a new advanced drug specifically for prostate cancer, which is made by Novartis. But that is one of the drugs that's in short supply. So rather than receiving the potentially life-saving care that he needs right now, he's been put on a wait list, which is expected to delay his treatment by several critical months. He told NBC, quote, "I definitely need that drug. It's the only way I see my life." But it's not just cancer drugs. A Senate subcommittee recently released a report on the growing scourge of critical drug shortages, and they held hearings on this matter. According to that report, at the end of 2022, a full 295 individual drugs were in shortage. In a single year, from 2021 to 2022, drug shortages spiked by 30%. And because drug makers have few requirements to inform the government of upcoming shortages or explain the causes, regulators, doctors, and patients are often completely in the dark about when a drug might be available or whether it's going to be available at all. Listen to how one of the witnesses at that hearing described the horror that this creates for doctors and for patients.
We are lucky enough to live in a country where cutting-edge research has massively reduced cancer-related deaths. But cancer drug shortages represent a tragedy that's happening in slow motion. For example, etoposide is a cancer drug that's been on the market for over 40 years and typically costs less than $50 a vial. It is given to patients for nearly a dozen different kinds of cancer. But in 2018, due to a manufacturing delay, this drug was on shortage across the country. Which of our patients with cancer should get it? How can we prioritize between American lives? Should our limited vials go to an older woman who was just diagnosed with lung cancer, a young man who's already been successfully taking it for testicular cancer, or a baby with neuroblastoma, an aggressive cancer for which this drug is recommended, but others might substitute? Our hospital, like others across the country, struggled to make decisions based on projected availability, which patients were already under our care, and our best guess at how many new patients would be diagnosed in the coming weeks. As a doctor who's devoted my life to fighting cancer, it's hard to express how horrible that is. In this particular case, we had enough drug for our lung and testicular cancer patients, and our heroic pharmacist was able to scrape together enough etoposide from the bottom of the leftover vials to also treat the infant patient. But our pharmacist should not be desperately trying to squeeze out a few last drops when a life may be on the line.
Now, the causes of these shortages will not be remotely surprising to you. It's the same story we see in a whole lot of industries, only, of course, with lives on the line. Industry consolidation has meant that when a single drug maker stops making a drug or has some sort of supply or factory issue, the result can be absolutely devastating. In the name of market fundamentalism, we have also allowed damn near our entire pharmaceutical supply chain to become dependent on ingredients or processes from foreign countries, most notably China and India. 80% of the factories that make active ingredients for pharmaceuticals are located outside of the U.S. That's the reason why this hearing was actually held by a Senate committee focused on Homeland Security. Our drug shortage issue is so dire, it is actually a national security issue. According to CNN, a single factory in Shanghai that made a necessary material for radiological scans shut down. It literally nuked half the U.S. supply of that critical substance. A VA hospital doc told them that the shortage hit them immediately, and they were faced with making some horrific choices about whether they had enough to do a needed cancer screen or heart disease scan. Many of the drugs in short supply are generics, which provide a lower profit margin than the patent-protected drugs. Since Big Pharma is unable to have a monopoly over these drugs and unconscionably price gouge us, in some cases, They just decide to stop producing them altogether. Now, the neoliberal or libertarian or farmer shill answer to all of this would be to basically bribe the drug makers to make the drugs that we need, give out price gouging monopolies for the generics, or use Medicare or tax credits to artificially prop up the prices, use an endless stream of corporate subsidies to inflate an already wildly profitable industry just to induce them to keep from killing babies with cancer, bribe them with even more subsidies to manufacture drugs here rather than overseas. Meanwhile, you're just allowing pharma to blackmail the American people and the US government. Nice cancer drug you got there, shame if something happened to it. Let me just state the absolute obvious. This is an insane way to run a healthcare system. You simply cannot let profit incentives determine who gets care, what drugs get made, who lives, who dies, who spends the rest of their lives under a crushing burden of medical debt. And a cursory glance at this current system tells you that it is already anything but a free market. Already, public money has been used to fund every single new drug molecule over the past 2 decades. Why? Because drug companies aren't interested in saving lives. They're interested in extracting profit. So they would rather spend their research and development money crafting a new formulation of Viagra that they can use to extend the patent, or not performing research at all, but engaging in all-out lawfare to protect their monopoly price gouging powers for another few years. But listen, I understand if you aren't ready to just fully nationalize the industry. Our government has certainly got a long way to prove they're really up to the task of effectively managing production and distribution. So, how about we start with a pharma public option? Join the ranks of other nations which have recognized that some essential medicines are too critical to be left to the whims of the greedy psychopaths who run the pharmaceutical industry. Countries that have also decided that the public should benefit from the medicines our tax dollars are used to invent in the first place. As Stat News writes, quote, publicly owned manufacturers at the state, local, and regional levels could make new medicines developed by a national R&D institute and also produce low-cost generics. These manufacturers would then work with publicly owned wholesale distributors to assure the medications are available at hospitals and retail pharmacies nationwide, all at the same low price. It could even leverage existing public institutions like the U.S. Postal Service and the Veterans Health Administration, both of which have important experience in pharmaceutical distribution to ensure that cost-effective medications are delivered directly to patients and clinics in every community. Listen, Big Pharma wants to compete in these markets, great. If they prefer to make the 40th version of Viagra instead, so be it. Remember back a while ago when there was a whole fear-mongering campaign about Obamacare and supposedly socialized medicine creating death panels? Well, now hospitals struggling with these shortages are forced into actual, literal death panels, trying to weigh the ethics, as we heard, of how to ration a limited supply of life-saving drugs. Plot twist, capitalism actually brought you the death panels. Never again should we allow people who are already going through the worst moments of their lives to have to worry about whether the drug that would save their life is profitable enough to make. And I am shocked that this is— Hey guys, ready or not, 2024 is fully upon us now, and Sagar and I have been brainstorming ways that we can really up our game for this critical election.
Yeah, we rely on our premium subs to expand our coverage, to add staff, to upgrade the studio. We just want to give you the best independent coverage of this election, which is possible. So if you can help us out, become a premium subscriber today, breakingpoints.com, or the link is down here in the description video. It really means the world to us, and if you like what we're all about, this is the best possible way to keep us 100% independent, working only for you.